I'm standing here outside Beverley Minster. Now this place is over 700 years old. But this place and the place where you are probably wouldn't exist without this guy. Well, that's a statue, you might say. Yeah, but it was once a man. Well, the statue wasn't a man, it's a carving of a man who lived a really long time ago, and I'm going to tell you all about him. What's his name, I hear you ask? Well, his name was John, a pretty ordinary name, but he lived an extraordinary life, the kind of life that gets you carved into stone. I don't know if you know anyone carved in stone, but I don't. So he must be a pretty important guy.
We're going to travel back in time, to more than 1,000 years ago. What was life back then like? Well, they did not have any tarmac roads, no Primark, no TV, no phones, no internet. This is the village of Harpham, and we think that John was a little nipper in this village, that he was born here and perhaps was educated here too.
John's childhood would have been very different from the one that we would recognise today, with no internet, no Netflix, no TV or Instagram. It's likely that John would have spent his time out here in the fields and the woods and the streams local to him in Harpham.
This is the Church of St. John in Harpham. We believe that John was educated. Now, for you, that is just a normal thing you don't think about. But in St. John's days, people had to pay a lot of money to get educated. And John would have probably learned similar things to you, maths, science, history, but instead of English, he would have learned Latin. Because in those days, a lot of the written word was in Latin. John was probably also educated by two men called Adrian and Theodore, although we don't know for sure, which then helped him along for his career later on when he was a monk. As a young man, John travelled to Whitby. You can still travel to Whitby today, and you can visit the ruined abbey. You might have been to Whitby, maybe for some fish and chips, or on holiday.
John didn't come here for fish and chips though. He came here to be a monk. This was a monastery, a home for nuns and monks. And while he was here, he was trained under Hilda, and she later became Saint Hilda. There's a monastery not too far from here that's still named after her, and you can still visit today. The abbey here wasn't where John came to. It would have been much smaller huts and stone buildings. This was built much later, but this was the place where John came to train to be a monk.
John was an exceptional monk, and he was noticed by people. So in 678, he was made a bishop. Now you might think he would become a bishop of Whitby, but he was sent to Hexham. Hexham is about 100 miles north of Whitby. There he got some special clothes on and got a staff, and he was the overseer of many churches, because that is what the word bishop means, overseer.
It was during John's time as bishop that some miracles were recorded and later written down by Bede in his book, The Ecclesiastical History of English People, which you can still read today. Well, we've arrived at Beverley Westwood. You may even be able to see the minster behind me. Now, John was the Bishop of Hexham for 18 years, and afterwards he became the Bishop of York. And it was during that time, when he was the Bishop of York, that he would spend time here. Now, it wasn't called Beverley then, it was called Indeera Wood. which means men from the wood of Deira. And I'm not sure what John enjoyed about this place. It was maybe the stillness and the quiet. Unlike the town we know today, this would have been made up of lots more trees, lots more marshy islands, and it would have been very tranquil and a great place for a busy bishop to spend some time.
John loved the place, so he built a monastery here. Monks and nuns came to live, to worship God and to help the poor. In 718, John retired from his job as a bishop in York, and because he wanted to go somewhere nice and probably somewhere quiet, he decided to retire to Indira Wood. Lived another 3 years and died on the 7th of May 721.
This is John's well. It's a well dedicated to John. After his death, the people of Harpham wanted to create a memory of John here in the village where he was born, and so this well was set up. There's no water flowing through it now, but when there was, it was said it could cure headaches, heal eye conditions, and even make wild animals tame. It's a shame it's all gone. The people of Beverley still visit Harpham every year on a pilgrimage. A pilgrimage is a special journey, and they come here singing songs and praising God and thanking Him for John's life. And they end the pilgrimage here at his well. After his death, people travelled to visit John's grave, and in 938 the first King of England, King Athelstan, came to visit his grave. And after winning a great battle, he made Beverley a town of sanctuary. People still travel today to visit John's grave and to see the statue and the stained glass windows in this beautiful church. And in 1038, the Pope, the head of the church, made John of Beverley Saint John of Beverley. Now, we owe a lot to Saint John. In fact, the whole town of Beverley owes us a lot to Saint John. Without him, this place would probably not be built. Now, John was an ordinary man, but he lived an extraordinary life. And you can do the same.